They're making serious investments in clean energy because they want those jobs. Well, I do not accept second place for the United States of America.
I do not accept second place for the United States of America. Now, that's a powerful statement. I remember I felt my neck hairs tingle when that one was said. I do not accept second place for the United States of America. And I thought about it. You know, who would accept second place? Who would you talk to? Who would you call up? And they would say, you know what? It is good enough for the United States to be second best, to be anything less than the greatest nation on earth. And I think that there will be very few Americans who would say, yeah, we're feeling that, or that rolls with us. Now, the challenge that I have is, okay, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to do it. I mean, what does it mean to actually and literally be number one? Now, we don't have to ask ourselves too tough questions because we actually have been number one in a lot of ways for a long time. But now we find ourselves in a place where maybe it takes more than rhetoric to be at the top. And the question I'm thinking about this morning is, what does it actually take to be the best? And what is our nation willing to do? Now, I understand that some of y'all are joining us in. We have a caller on the line. Mike, are you with us? All right. Apparently, we got no Mike. It looks like we may have Paula. Paula, are you in effect?
Nope. We don't have a caller yet, so we'll keep going there, Derrick.
We don't have a caller yet. Okay. Excuse me for misrepresenting or misreading my notes here. Anyway, back to my primary issue, which is, what does it take to be the best? And I think that it means going a little bit beyond just talking a good game. Now, that's not to say that our leadership or our country is all talk, but it is to say at a certain point you've got to make certain sacrifices or certain kinds of investments in order to be great, right? You can't just say, well, we are the best, therefore we're the best. It just simply doesn't work that way. It would be wonderful if I could wake up this morning and say, you know what, I feel like an Olympian, so I'm going to go out and set a record in the 100 meters. Yeah. But I've been eating donuts all week and kicking it. You know, that might not be the best methodology or the best prescription for success. And one of the things that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at our country is, are we truly invested in the ways we need to be in order to have that kind of success we want to? And I want to talk about a couple of different areas. First, let's get into the big one. Let's just start with the go for the gusto. And I want to talk about health care. Could we start with clip number 11, please?
I didn't choose to tackle this issue to get some legislative victory under my belt. And by now, it should be fairly obvious that I didn't take on health care because it was good politics. I took on health care because of the stories I've heard from Americans with pre-existing conditions whose lives depend on getting coverage. Patients who've been denied coverage. Families, even those with insurance, who are just one illness away from financial ruin.
One illness away from financial ruin. That's what we're talking about right now. You're listening to the Derrick Ashong Experience on Oprah Radio, Sirius 195 XM 156. You can call in anytime, 1-866-OPRAH-XM. That's 866-677-2496. One illness away. So, for those that don't know, I've been writing a series of pieces for Oprah.com about issues that I think are important. And a few months ago, I guess maybe a month or so ago, I wrote a piece that I called A Right to Life. And in that piece, I talked about a personal experience. And that was of myself. For those that are not aware, I grew up or was born overseas. I was born in West Africa, in Ghana. And when I was a kid, I moved to the United States, specifically to Brooklyn. Big ups. And from Brooklyn, I moved to the Middle East. I lived there for about 8 years, and I came back to the States at age 16. So whereas my life has been one of a global citizen, a lot of my family members are still back home in Ghana, which is what we still call a developing country. And I remember, I was having a conversation with a friend yesterday who's another big-time traveler. He's all over the world. And he was actually talking to me about something that he had experienced with catching an illness while overseas and then coming back to the United States and having the good fortune to have access to the best doctors checking in on him to make sure that he was okay. It was a rare disease. It was typhoid fever, not the kind of thing you see on a regular day-to-day basis. But because he was an amazing person in an amazing country, he got access to the health care that he needed. The question before us is, does everyone get that access? How many of us have access to the first world resources of our country, and how many of us are getting third world care? Lisa, welcome to the Derrick Ashong Experience. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Well, hey, Derrick. Well, first of all, I'd like to say sort of big up to your show. It's pretty terrific.
Thank you.
And I wanted to chime in on your question about what it takes to be number one.
Okay.
First off, I'd like to just point out that, I think that Obama's move to give basically up to $500,000 credit to reimburse small business for certain taxes is huge. Small businesses employ over 50% of the American population. People don't really realize that. And so, when you talk about kickstarting economies and competing with, sort of China and India, I think doing just that isn't enough. I think we need to look at some great ideas to stimulate small businesses and what it can do for the American economy, i.e. a small business venture capital fund funded by the government. I mean, we're able to put so much in the bailout. I mean, maybe we can shift some to small businesses. So those are sort of my thoughts. I mean, small businesses grow to big businesses, right? Small businesses, right? And the tax base from large businesses is pretty much what fuels the American government in terms of, the bulk of their tax base. If you think about it, small business is the lifeblood of America, and I think if we want to be competitive, I think we need to start there.
Okay.
Just my 2 cents.
Lisa, can you stick with us for a quick sec? Because I want to ask you a couple questions on that. First, I think that's a great point. Small business is the lifeblood of our economy. Now, one of the things, though, that I think people will raise when you talk about having a venture capital fund for small business is that small business typically is a risky investment. When you look at it on a large scale, you're going to be talking about all kinds of companies that are coming up. What kind of infrastructure would you require to adequately vet and determine which of those are the better bets in small business? Because you're right, if it's successful, you can make a massive return. But most small businesses fail in their first 5 years. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, but we already have an infrastructure in place in sort of commercial private America. The venture capital community out in Palo Alto, I mean, they already have a vetting process. So I'm not necessarily saying support all small businesses. I mean, definitely there should be a vetting process. But America is fueled by sort of new, fresh, innovative ideas that are given an opportunity to, come alive or sort of grow. And I'm just thinking that we need to juice up that process a little bit, if you will. And I think, it's a different idea. It's a novel idea. It's not a tax break. It's not something I've ever heard, but it would be neat if the U.S. government would consider doing something like that. So we're not just looking to, the handful of VC companies on the West and East Coast to sort of support that growth. Just a thought.
Lisa, I love your thought. I think that's brilliant, and I think that's just the kind of thinking that we need in order to kickstart things over here. And if you hold for a moment, Lisa, we want to give you a gift bag. We have some amazing gift bags courtesy of our friends at the Oprah Store. Oprah Store is running a Valentine's Day promotion until February 14th. Fellas, ladies, you're going to love this stuff. 20% off Swarovski Crystal Collection. They've got it at the store, and 20% off of the leather handbag collection as well. Big ups to the Oprah Store for supporting the cause. Lisa, please stay on the line. One of our producers is going to get you a gift. Thank you for sharing. Mark, welcome to the Derrick Ashong Experience. More callers, 866-OPRA-XM. Mark, what do you got to say?
Well, thank you. I have a couple of things to say. One, in regards to being number one, I think the first thing is that we have to be willing to admit that we are not already number one. And I think that so many people refuse to believe that there are areas in which we could actually improve. That's why I was so thrilled, because I think President Obama is the first president I've ever heard who sort of has admitted error in a State of the Union. So that's number one. But it's kind of like, people always saying we have the best health care in the world. And my question is always, well, what evidence are you using to base that on, and where else have you lived? it's like we automatically just assume these things, which may or may not be true. And the second thing I wanted to say in regards to healthcare and really all of the issues that we're dealing with in this country, I think that, I don't think anybody can doubt what an incredible, fantastic speaker the president is. However, I think that we can question the effectiveness of his communication, and what I believe the error is honestly, I believe that he has too much faith in the perception of the people of this country. And what I mean by that is that we have become, in many respects, a country that lives on sound bites. So I think that to assume that everyone is vested and interested enough to actually be doing the work to actually sit back and think and investigate the issues is a huge error. I don't understand why they don't just say, okay, these are the primary issues with healthcare, number 1, 2, and 3.
Now, Mark.
So we are going to go at issues 1, 2, and 3.
Mark, I have a quick question for you on that front, actually. So now you're saying that basically there's a communication problem in the way the president is talking to the American people. And you're saying that maybe he's got a certain kind of naivete in believing that people understand what's happening. I like the idea of laying things out in a simple fashion. But what do you do when obviously there are multiple interests that want to see their own ideas pursued in the legislation? So how do you deal with the fact that no matter what you say, the other side is potentially going to try to switch things around? Now, I'll give you a specific example. When we first started having this healthcare debate in the summer, I was listening to various ideas, etc., and some of them seemed pretty good. Some of them were a little bit questionable. People were talking about a public option. We were trying to figure out, well, what exactly is that? We were talking about a mandate to buy health care. I'd heard about that during the primaries. I wasn't really feeling it at first. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, there came this issue of death panels. And the argument being made that this health care legislation is going to basically kill your grandma. Now, I'm interested in your perspective on, first, I personally didn't buy it. I didn't believe that the American government was actually out to kill people's grandparents. I'm just not buying it for a variety of reasons we can get into if need be. But I'm wondering from you, Mark, how do you, no matter how lucidly you spell out your policies, deal with the argument that these guys want to kill your parents?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you can. I mean, there's always going to be people who are going to use people's fear, and they're always going to feed on the fear. I think that you can certainly anticipate what those arguments might be and overcome the objections before they're out of the gate. But I still think if you sort of, and I, forgive the possible insult of this to all of the people in the United States, but if you can sort of dummy down the message just a little bit and do it in digestible pieces so that you begin with all the things that everybody can be on the same page about, like, no pre-existing conditions, like instead of trying to pack everything. And I know this is probably completely unrealistic for the way Washington works, but to pack everything into, one bill, which, everybody argues nobody's actually ever read the whole thing, it's just very difficult to get people on the same page, and it's always going to be a challenge.
So basically you're saying that they've got to try to make it a little bit simpler, you guys. Mark is saying that our politicians need to spell things out in slightly more basic terms so everybody knows what's at stake. What are your thoughts? 866-OPRA-XM. That's 866-677-2496. Marty, welcome to the Derrick Ashong Experience. Do you think that the American people need more dumbed-down information?
Well, I was thinking, no. I think American people, yes, for the health care, yes. But I was kind of going back to being number one.
Okay.
And I think Americans don't know what it takes to be number one. We've lost sight of our kids. They sit in front of a video game. Their education, you go to school and you look at some of the papers that they bring home, they keep passing these kids on. We need to strengthen our kids. We need to spend more time with them. We need to be part of them instead of having someone educate them. Americans are always wanting someone else to do it for us.
Well, but Marty, it sounds like you think that this wasn't always the case. What do you think has changed?
I think because I'm a single parent.
Okay.
And I dedicated my life to my child. And, now I'm 55 and thinking, okay, now I need a life. But I think that's where it changed is when we turned our children's minds over to a TV set and not taking our kids out, taking them with us to work, letting them know there's a problem here. We're having financial trouble. You don't get that video game. You need to go and help me today. Be part of the solution, kid. Americans be part of the solution.
I think that's a powerful statement, Marty. The idea that we need to be a part of the solution, that we need to be invested in making things better. I wholeheartedly and completely agree. Marty, stay with us. I'm going to have one of our producers give you one of our lovely gift bags from the Oprah Store. Big ups, Oprah Store, for helping us out with this. Up till February 14th, we got some special things going on in the Valentine's Day promotion. Thank you for calling, Marty. We're going to talk to Parthenia up in a minute, but let's take a quick break. You guys, we're on the line talking about this stuff. It's important. What is the state of our union? 866-OPRA-XM. That's 866-677-2496. Talk to you in a few.
Meet the Meet the Young family. American Family Insurance put together a special policy for them. It's called the I'll Get Married When I'm 40. The game's on at my place. Who needs more than 2 seats in a car? And life may be about to change. Policy. American Family works with you to choose from over 375 products and features to create your custom family protection. Is your coverage as unique as your family?
To the Derrick Ashong Experience.
Hey, this is DNA on the Derrick Ashong Experience. Welcome back, y'all. 866 Oprah XM. Join the conversation. We are talking about the state of our union. 866-677-2496. Parthenia, welcome to the experience.
Good morning, Derrick Ashong. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you, Parthenia?
I am doing great. I'm calling you from Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay, Birmingham, a historic town. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm really in the mix here, and things are changing tremendously fast.
Really? What things are changing?
I live in Jefferson County, and I really shouldn't say things are changing. I grew up as a child in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And I told my daughter, who is 28 years old, I feel like I've been put right back in the situation. There's anger from certain ethnic characters here. There's anger from the Caucasians. There's anger from everyone. And I feel like I'm just been put back into that era. I hate Obama.
Are you saying you feel like there's anger that people are having towards each other, or that there are sort of racist or ethnic hatred in general, or directed against the president, directed against your family?
Right. I feel that when I go out, that the looks that I receive, I feel like I'm looking at a card-carrying Klansman. I mean, it's really very, very upsetting. You know, everything in Alabama is football. No one really wants to read about anything. You know, we have a system here where we have been really lost. And I give you an example. My daughters, I raised them the best I could. My husband passed away when they were 16, and they're now 28.
Okay.
And the thing so amazing about it, I did not allow my children to watch TV until they were 11 years old, except for Bill Cosby.
You know, Parthenia, I've got a question for you, because, you know, one of the things I think about is even though you may not have allowed your children to watch TV, somehow they're nevertheless living in a society that's influenced by all of us, right? And that's kind of frightening that you're living in Birmingham and you're feeling reminiscences of that time period when you were growing up, when we had a greater deal of ethnic strife in this country. I'm intrigued by your call, because this is the first time, as I've been having dialogue all week about what's going on with the State of the Union, that someone has raised the issue of race maybe becoming a bigger factor. But we see that when people are under economic stress, all kinds of different things sort of tend to hit up. I know that we got a couple other people. I want to thank you for jumping in on that point. And we know we've got a couple of callers coming in, 866-OPRAH-XM. We got you also listening. We're streaming live on OprahRadio.com. I want to take a quick minute to go back to an issue that I was raising earlier, and that is, once again, talking specifically about healthcare. And I mentioned that I had a friend of mine who I spoke to, who's a very influential musician. He's done a lot of amazing things, someone I definitely look up to. And he has gotten a certain kind of care when he was ill that the average person might not be able to get access to. And that's not because he's necessarily better than the next person, but it's because he knows some of the right people that can help him get what he needs. And I'm wondering, what does it take to make it such that in our nation today, everyone can get access to the kind of care that they need? Amy, welcome to the Derrick Ashong Experience. Do you have any thoughts on the issue?
I do. First of all, thanks, Derrick. This is, as Gail King would say, I love this conversation, because I think it gets people really thinking. But my comment really was, sometimes only when people are uncomfortable can the greatest catalyst for change happen. I happen to live in the suburbs of St. Louis, and you know, most people in my circles are what I kind of call fat and happy. You know, they have white collar jobs. They have 2 kids, you know, that go into school and everything's just fine. Nothing's really rocking the boat. And with this economy and with this change that we've gone through over the last couple of years, now you're seeing double-digit unemployment, not including, all the people that aren't even reporting that they don't have jobs now. And people are taken out of their comfort zone. Families that once had access to nice health benefits and insurance are now depending on the government systems for the first times in their lives, and their eyes are being wide open. They had no idea that the people that were struggling all of this time with these issues, these are people that were completely insulated from any type of awareness. And so I just think that the more people, it's very sad to say, but not until are you confronted sometimes in your personal circle with these types of issues do you ever take the time to become completely educated about a topic such as health care.
So, Amy, you're basically saying we've got an opportunity now, right? Because of the kind of general crisis, that people are starting to become more aware of how these issues may be affecting other people and moving out of their comfort zone. I actually think that's a really powerful statement, and that it's an interesting way of looking at this. Not just are we in a negative situation where things are tumbling down, but we're actually at a moment in history where we may be able to actually do something better for ourselves. Am I getting you right?
Absolutely. I think it's just really, if you look at the history of America, in the worst times of crisis and strife, 9 times out of 10, we were able to take a negative and turn it into the positive. My dad said to me years ago, Amy, busy people do more. And I remember back during the campaign when Obama was running and it was getting close to the election and this crisis was hitting first. The news, I actually was in Belgium at the time traveling, and McCain and Obama were going to have a debate, and McCain wanted to postpone the debate because he wanted to be able to focus on this crisis. And Obama said, no, we're adults. We can do more than one thing at a time. And people criticize the president right now for taking on too much. I say it's the perfect time to address these big issues while people are feeling it and can understand and relate at that personal level where they're no longer insulated to say, you know what, it's time that we make this change.
Amy, thank you so much. That is a heavy-duty statement that now is the time to do more, right? She's talking about busy people. We're on 866-OPRAH-XM, 866-677-2496. Kay, welcome to the show, the Derrick Ashong Experience. What do you think about busy people making things happen in this country?
Hi, Derrick. Thanks for taking my call. I had a little issue with the gentleman that called that thought we needed to dumb down things for the American people. We're not stupid.
Okay.
And to me, most of the things that in the health care bill that they say, just about everybody agrees with. The pre-existing, getting insurance in other states. It's the stuff that's hitting in 2,000 pages that most of the people in the legislature that have a law degree can't even understand when they read it. There's no excuse for a bill to be that big. They need to focus on the issues that everybody can agree on and pass that instead of hiding stuff in 2,000 pages of bills that nobody really knows exactly what's in.
Thank you, Kay. That is another great point. So this is interesting, right? Because this seems to be one of the ongoing themes when we look at legislation in our country. Who understands it? Who knows exactly what it says? And I perceive that a lot of people, particularly in the healthcare debate, are a little bit afraid because we don't exactly know what kind of changes are going to come as a part and parcel of this legislation. Now, one of the things I also noticed as I was watching the punditocracy discussing the issue ad nauseum is that oftentimes when they would talk to a legislator about if they'd read the bill, the answer was no. I mean, who can really comprehend this stuff? And I think it's an interesting concept that we should be able to have legislation that people should be able to read and comprehend. The problem is, when I was in college, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So I took a lot of pre-law classes, and we wound up reading a lot of case law. And the difficulty is, I don't know if anybody but a trained attorney is going to be able to read and comprehend any of the legislation that is on tap, any of the legislation that has ever been passed in the country. I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't read it all, But from what I've seen, it's complicated. And while I agree with you, Kay, that we don't really want to dumb down our language for the American people, because I do believe that the American people are prepared and capable to rise to the occasion. I also think that there's got to be some kind of balance between, yes, having legislation that is done in the proper form and people are, it is, correct and official, etc., and having enough or a good enough translation of that legislation from people who we believe in that we can actually comprehend what's in it. And so maybe the issue is not so much that the legislation itself is too complex, but that we don't necessarily trust the people who have been given the task of translating it for us. Chris from Canada, what do you think?
Well, I've been listening to this whole healthcare debate, Derek, for ages. And, we don't pay any healthcare in Canada, and I think most of you know that. Mm-hmm. My dad had a stroke recently. He was in the hospital for 2.5 months. It didn't cost him anything. And I know that, but I have had a friend that died of cancer at home in Montana because he had no health care because he had a pre-existing condition. And I'm not sure if it's why most of the Americans are balking at it when you've got Britain and most European countries that do not pay for health care, why you wouldn't kind of go, wow, that's great, that we pay it out of our taxes. I'm not sure, because most Canadians are very happy with their system.
Well,
so I guess I fail to understand why it's even a debate.
Well, Chris, one of the big questions actually that I would have for you, and one of the things that's been raised in this in the debate in the United States, is that Canadians don't get as good health care as Americans do. I mean, we hear that you guys have long waits, that when you have major conditions that need to be addressed, it's difficult for you to get in to see a specialist. Is that true?
No, I think that they're probably using, some examples. The people that are against it are using some examples where that's happened. But the majority of it, like I said, my dad had a stroke, was taken away by ambulance, and 2 months later he's able to walk again.
Amen.
So, and I have never been to a hospital that I've waited with. I ride horses. I've broken every bone. I've never waited longer than last time I broke a finger. I was in there for 16 minutes. So I don't know where the long waits are. Maybe, 16 minutes for them to tell me.
What part of Canada are you in?
Western Canada, and maybe it's not as populated.
We're moving to Vancouver. Okay.
But anyway, I would just think that maybe I don't know. It's just my feelings on it when I listen to it.
Yeah. Basically, you're saying that you think that the story has kind of been twisted a little bit, that the reality of what's happening in Canada is not necessarily as it's been presented. Chris, thank you so much for that. You guys are listening to the Derrick Ashong Experience. We are live on Oprah Radio. You can reach us at 866-OPRAH-XM. That's 866-677-2496. We are also streaming live on OprahRadio.com right now. You can reach me on Facebook, Facebook.com/Derrick Ashong Experience, or Twitter, Twitter.com/Ashong. The hashtag for this conversation is #TheDNAX. Join the conversation. Robert, what's the word?
Hey, how's it going, Derrick? I listened to your show the first time it started, and it's so far, I'm coming back for the second show.
All right. But thank you, Robert, for joining us from the beginning. We appreciate it.
Yeah, but what I wanted to make a comment on, I've been listening. I listen to stations, as far as Fox, CNN. I drive trucks over the road, and one of the things, going back to the election, and now with the health care debate, and as I was telling your call screener, the problem I think that is happening in the media is basically it's kind of like I'm 50 years old. When I grew up, you could turn on the evening news, you sat around, you ate dinner, you listened to the news. They basically told you what was going on. They didn't add their own personal information to kind of sway you. And I think the problem now is, with the health care, even back with the elections, there's so much, the media has the opportunity now to, insert their own views and sway the issue one way or another. And then you have with the internet, you can have, Joe Blow down the street. He could, put up a website, and if he's getting a lot of hits, it's just like with Obama. They were saying he wasn't a citizen, and it took off, and, it's just ridiculous.
So, wait, Robert, let me just try to understand your point. So are you saying that there's too much information coming at us and that all of it, you don't know where to get accurate information? Or can you just encapsulate what the point you're trying to make for me? Because I'm not quite getting it.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is, yes, there's too much information that's coming across, and basically it seems like Americans really don't know. They have an idea of where to go to get accurate information, but is it truly accurate information? And that's the problem. You know, no one, you can't tell if it's true or if it's false, or it is just confusing people.
I see. So basically, first of all, Robert, thank you. I want you to hold on for a second. We're going to give you a gift bag from the oprahstore.com. We've got these gift bags courtesy of the Oprah Store. And from now till February 12th, you get a 20% discount off of select items within the workout category. So if you want to get fit in 2010, definitely check out oprahstore.com. Robert, thank you so much for calling. You guys, I think that Robert makes a very intriguing argument. Pat, we have so much information today, but we don't really know what to believe, you know, and that's something that I can definitely relate to. I mean, it seems that anybody now can get up on a microphone and tell you something, and you've got to hope that they're telling you the truth. And one of the things I always say when I speak about the mainstream media in particular is that having two people from two different sides of the aisle tell me two different sets of lies does not help me in my quest for the truth. How do we know what to believe? As we're even thinking about the state of our nation, how do we even comprehend what the real state of that nation is when we don't know who and what to believe? Looks like we've got another caller coming in from Canada. We are on the line, you guys, 866-OPRAH-XM. Debbie from Canada, what are your thoughts? Who do you believe?
Actually, Derek, we lost Debbie, but we've got Marcia on line one.
Marcia.
Marcia,
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I think we are experiencing too many elements that are really divisive and derisive in this country and, in fact, in the world. And when we realize that this is a global community and America can no longer be number one, we need to try to work together with the entire world and all the countries and all the people, because otherwise none of us will succeed, none of us will exist. And Americans have this very opinionated and, higher thinking about themselves, that like we're the best and everybody else is below us, and we've got to get rid of that.
So, Marcia, this is interesting. You're saying that Americans need to be maybe a little bit more humble vis-a-vis the rest of the world. But I have a question. I mean, what does it feel like when you cease to be number one? Are we prepared to have access to less of the resources we currently have? How many Americans are willing to take a shorter shower, drive a smaller car, maybe drive less, maybe not have a car, right? Because when you talk about not being number one anymore, it's not just talk. There are actual practical implications to it. What would you be willing to sacrifice to be a better player in the world community?
Well, I definitely would be I would be prepared to sacrifice driving a smaller car, living in a smaller home. Okay. And I think the truth of the matter is that all of us will not have a choice. We will all have to do it. It can no longer be the haves and the have-nots, and I think that's what the issue is. Some people aren't willing to let other people come to the table and have a seat, and you're talking to somebody who has a great job, who has a beautiful home, who does, I have a PhD. The matter of the fact is that I'm willing to have less to share with other people, and we've all got to get to that place.
Okay, thank you so much, Marcia. You guys, Marcia is willing to have less to share with other people. And Marcia, I respect you for being willing to walk the talk. That's really powerful. We're here on Oprah XM, 866-OPRAH-XM, 866-677-2496. It's a profound issue. I remember when I was growing up, I periodically tell people about my experiences living in different parts of the world. And as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, I talked to a friend who got sick and who got access to great health care. Well, I can relate to that profoundly myself because I got malaria when I was a kid and when I was a teenager and when I was a young man, actually. I've had malaria probably 3 or 4 times. Now, yeah, don't worry, it's not contagious. Y'all, everybody in the studio is like, oh, he had malaria. Oh, my God, head for the doors. No, 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 I'm not a mosquito. I cannot bite you. But if you don't know, malaria is a disease that you get from being bitten by mosquitoes, right? And it's actually right now the biggest killer of any disease in Africa. People talk about, oh, well, malaria is, they think about disease in Africa, everyone talks about HIV, and that's a big issue, but malaria is a bigger issue, and it very rarely gets discussed. Now, I remember the last time I had malaria. I was actually studying back home. I was like 20 years old. And I started getting the shakes and shivers and whatnot. I felt terrible. And I was like, what's going on? Oh, it's probably nothing. Probably just the flu. I went to bed that night. I woke up the next day. And I was shaking physically so hard. I kind of guessed something might be wrong. So I went to the hospital. I was in Kumasi, which is one of the biggest cities in Ghana. And they scooped me up. They stuck me with an IV, and I laid there for like 24 hours just doing nothing, just trying to recuperate. And after about a day or so, I started feeling better. They let me go home. And after 2 days, I was all back to normal, running around, jumping, doing the things I usually do. Now, that was great for me because I was a student in Ghana, but I was a student at an American institution, and I had health care insurance that covered that transatlantic care. Now, a lot of my family members have had malaria, and I remember one of my uncles actually got sick a few years ago, and I saw him, and he was looking kind of thinner, kind of weak, because it really beats you down, and he wasn't getting the same kind of care that American students get. And I felt bad. We tried to do things what we could help. We all spent some family time together. I came back to the States. And about a month later, I get a call that my uncle has died. And I remember being shocked because I've had malaria. A lot of my other family members, my uncles, aunties, different people. But I kept thinking to myself, like, wow, like, he lives there. He's lived there for 60 odd years. And for him to survive 60-some years and to die of a disease that can be cured, what is that about? Why does that happen? Now, what a lot of people don't realize is malaria is not just a challenge or a problem for those of us who grew up in the developing world. Back in the 19th century, in the 18th century, malaria was endemic in South Carolina. In the Carolinas here in the United States, it was a major issue. And in the first part of the 20th century, the U.S. government, along with the National Institutes of Health and all these other institutions, came together on a program to eradicate malaria. How many of you know someone from South Carolina who has ever had malaria? Right? The problem no longer even exists in that part of the country today. Matter of fact, how many of you know anyone anywhere in the United States who's ever had malaria? Now, the issue is this. This is a health problem that was actually epidemic at one point, and that was adequately addressed. And we've had so many. How many of us know anyone who's ever had polio? Right? How many of us have met someone who's had typhoid fever? These are things that are not really problems here today. And yet we have other health problems, high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, that we assume are kind of just a part of our lives. And the question that I have is, if the people who predated us with less access to technology, capital, and opportunity could eradicate illnesses in their day, what are we doing to eradicate illness in ours? And are we willing to accept that just as it took the intervention of government and the private sector and real people to find solutions then, it might take the same now? We're going to talk a little bit more about this when we come back from the break. I got my caller Greg on the line, and he wants to say something about Marcia's comments. So let's see if we can get a little debate up in here. You're listening to the Derrick Ashong Experience, Oprah XM. Check us out in a few. Catch you in a sec. Peace.
Meet the Young family. American Family Insurance put together a special policy for them. It's called the I'll Get Married When I'm 40. The game's on at my place. Who needs more than 2 seats in a car? And life may be about to change. Policy. American Family works with you to choose from over 375 products and features to create your custom family protection. Is your coverage as unique as your family?
Stay connected.
Twitter.com/Ashong.
He's not just the voice of a new generation, he's the voice for all generations.
The Derrick Ashong Experience on Oprah Radio.
Hey yo, this is DNA back up on the MIC. You're listening to the Derrick Ashong Experience. Yo, it's funny, this is a random sidebar, but I was listening to Gayle King the other day, and she was talking about how she'd be having hot flashes. Now, I still have not had a proper explanation of what a hot flash is, but like I'm terribly over here having the most disgustingly gross snot flashes. I'm just gonna tell you right now, because I spent the week at Sundance in Park City, Utah, and I brought back with me not Ebola, not typhoid fever, not even malaria, but a cold. So, although I can't relate, Gail, to your hot flash, I am definitely relating with my snot flash over here. And y'all will pardon me if I have to blow my nose every now and again. But back to the subject at hand, I believe that Greg is on the line. Y'all can join the conversation at 866-OPRA-XM, 866-677-2496. Greg, I understand you had a comment on Marcia's thoughts. What's the word?
Yeah, I did. And I just want to welcome you to Oprah and Friends, man. Good luck. Hope it works really well for you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Appreciate your show.
Awesome. I appreciate you calling in.
I appreciate your show. I appreciate hey, no problem. I was listening to you call those comments, and I disagree a little bit with Marcia in that, I don't think that...
First tell the people, what did Marcia say that you disagree with?
Well, what I disagree with is that she was espousing that the U.S. has been number one for so long that how are we going to live? How are we going to live being not number one any longer? Or are we going to give up some things in order to just live in the rest of the world type of thing? And I think that what the point is it's not who's one or two. It's about, and it always has been, except that we've not done it. It's always about lifting up everyone together. It's funny. My dad has been passed now for a couple of years, but I'm Italian, and the funny thing about Italians is, man, we love to eat. My dad would always say, if we could stop all the racial strife and stuff like that, and love each other. If you just have everybody stretch a table from coast to coast or around the world or whatever it is, and everybody brings some ethnic food, how can you hate somebody who's got some good Italian food or soul food or Korean food or whatever it happens to be?
I completely feel you on that, because I know Africans eat a lot of Italian food. In Ghana, the biggest thing, we eat Italian food. We eat spaghetti with everything. Real Italians don't eat as much spaghetti as we do. But we also have mad Chinese restaurants. So it's interesting you bring up that point, because as an artist, I think that music is one of the ways that brings people together as well. But why do you think that people find themselves being so divided when we already know that we share the same interests in food and music and culture? Why do those divisions exist?
More ego than anything else, to be honest with you. I think people always want to, they have an innate feeling within themselves to be number one, to go that extra mile, to always, to shine above somebody else. And sometimes it gets in the way of what the reality is. Look, what's going on in Haiti right now, it doesn't matter if the person is black or white or Asian or Latino, whatever it happens to be. Everybody's going down there and helping, right?
Absolutely.
And the same thing there is they're also, that's 95% black, and they're taking the help because, we're all brothers and sisters, and that's what it's about is, if we could help each other out, get through this, the world would be such a better place and not have to worry about nuclear arms or, whether or not somebody is trying to be imperialistic or not. It's more about helping rather than deciding you're number one, you're number two, you're number 12, whatever it happens to be.
Greg, I
And I
appreciate your
think-
comments, and I think that you're right in that, there are ways in which we can move way beyond race. There are a lot of ways, but it's funny that you bring up that issue of those things that divide us, because I was listening to a commentator that I actually respect a lot the other day speaking about what was going on, or the president's State of the Union, and he made a comment that was intriguing. And Lindy28, I know that you're joining us on Ustream. Thanks, Lindy, for bringing up the issue of Chris Matthews' remarks on Obama. And he basically said that for the last hour, he no longer saw the president as black. He just saw him as colorless. Now, Lindy28 sees this as a compliment. And I know a lot of people have been really arguing about, well, what does this mean? Is this good? Is it bad? And I'll tell you what I think. Lindy28, I relate to your idea that maybe it's complimentary to think that, we can move beyond seeing race. But the issue here is, I'm wondering the last time you had, a 40 or 50-something-year-old white guy on this camera making a speech or giving a speech, and someone said, "Oh my God, that speech was so great, I no longer noticed that he was white." Right? I'm just wondering, when was the last time you had a State of the Union where someone looked at the president and said, "That speech was so amazing. For a minute, I almost forgot that he was white." and now the fact is, maybe you did forget that he was white. Maybe you never thought about the fact that he was white. Maybe because this is the first black president, it wasn't even to be questioned that obviously if he's the president, he's going to be white and he's going to be a guy. But in this instance, we're kind of learning a new way to talk about these issues because it's a new day, and obviously we're making progress along it with some of these racial concerns. So I personally do not believe that Chris Matthews' comment was racist, right? I don't think it was the best thing to say, but I just don't really think it was racist. And I also would take it a step further, and I know some of my friends are going to bug out that I should even say this, but it's like the comments with Harry Reid the other day. And it's like Harry Reid said that Obama got elected because he's a light-skinned black man and he can speak, with or without that Negro dialect, that good old Negro dialect. I'm trying to work on mine. It's going to take a little time, so we'll see what we can do. But, everyone was pissed off. And they said, how could he say this? And oh, my God, and he's a racist. And he talked about Obama got elected because he was light-skinned and he talked good. But if he was dark-skinned and he talked bad, would he have gotten elected? No. So what Reid said was kind of true. Now, I don't want all of my, I've got a hardcore right-wing, skinhead fan base, for those that don't know. And I don't want them to call in and be like, oh, Derrick Ashong said that we can all be racist now. It's okay. No. That's not the point, please, folks. But the point is, sometimes people can say things that may not be the most appropriate. And they may not be the thing that we can relate the most to. And maybe they should have said something different or a little bit better. But I don't know if it necessarily means that they're racist. And in this instance, I definitely wish that Chris Matthews had not said that, because it's got implications that he probably didn't mean. The speech was so good. For a minute, I forgot the guy was black. What does that mean? If the speech was bad, you would have remembered, right? If he came off as a jerk, you would have been like, oh, look at this black guy. What a jerk. I mean, it's got implications that I know he probably didn't mean, that maybe if he'd said things differently, we wouldn't even be discussing. But that said, I think that there are real racists in the world, and there are people who really hate for a variety of reasons, whether it's about your gender or your skin color or your sexual orientation or what have you. And I don't think that we should lump regular people who make genuine mistakes in the same category as those who genuinely hate. So thank you, Lindy28, for bringing this issue up. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to come back and talk about an amazing book and a very bright man. And this text is about a rock and roll jihad. Yeah, what y'all know about that? Yo, you're listening to the Derrick Ashong Experience. Oprah Radio, Sirius 195, XM 156, and OprahRadio.com. Check us out, Facebook, Twitter. We'll be right back.